All right, folks, we're back here again. It's early October now. It's been a little bit since we did a video, and we've had a couple of significant updates to the Oscar race to talk about, a couple of big things. So I wanted to do another video and kind of cover those. So, first of all, I wanted to just let you guys know as far as I get rid of a couple things here. Just let you know what I've seen lately. You know, I always like to kind of give my 2 cents on everything. You know, just for kicks and everything. I skipped the Goldfinch. It just looks like that's going to be a total miss, complete crash and burn there. Even with that, I was still saying, you know, look out for Deakins in cinematography. But since then, we've learned something very crucial about the Sam Mendes film 1917, the war film coming up. We've seen the second trailer for that. Looks better. I like the second trailer a lot better than the first trailer. And I'm a lot more interested in this film now just because of the one aspect that we learned, and that is that the film is basically going to be the Birdman version of a war film, where it's going to be the one continuous shot kind of gimmick, if you will. And I just say that for fun. But no, and it looks like, you know, in that regard, it's like, man, I'm like, that makes me 10 times more interested to see this now. So, yeah, from that aspect, I mean, yeah, done. Deakins pretty much wins that in a landslide now. And I don't think people would mind giving Deakins, who's, you could argue, the greatest living cinematographer, you know, to give him a second Oscar, you know, 2 years after you gave him the first. I mean, it's, yeah, I don't think too many people are gonna have too many backhanded comments against that. But anyways, let's see. I did see Hustlers, the Jennifer Lopez film, Constance Wu and everybody. Now, I think I like this film a lot, and I didn't, again, kind of initially I was a little, I don't know, but then the reviews were really good. It came out strong out of Toronto. All of a sudden, everybody's talking, you know, Jennifer Lopez for supporting actor or lead actress, and that's going to be a tough call. And personally, for my money, put her in supporting. If STX, anybody who's involved in film, if you happen to be listening to this, I doubt you are, but anyways, put her in supporting, please, because I've seen a couple other films. Her chances are a hell of a lot better in supporting actress. And in all honesty, though, having seen the film too, Constance Wu is the lead of that film. In all respects, she's the character. You know, everything we see is through her eyes. There's significant gaps in screen time where Lopez is not there. There's enough there for her to be Lopez to be considered a supporting actress. If you can say that Mahershala Ali last year was supporting actor in Green Book, and there wasn't too much of a fuss around that because it was going to give him an Oscar anyways, then I think you can make the exact same argument for Lopez and say, hey, she has a really good shot, I think, if she's going to get nominated for supporting actress in that regard. If they're going to campaign her lead, and Constance Wu would also, I guess, campaign as a co-lead, I think the chances get diminished. Not significantly to the point where I'm like, it's not going to happen, but definitely it's harder for that to happen. But yeah, and as for the film itself, I did like a lot of it. It is very much feels like a kind of female-driven version of Big Short, you know, amongst a couple of things. And as we kind of mentioned going into the season, this was on my radar because we did have Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, you know, producing on this. McKay, of course, you know, has done very well at the Oscars recently here. So I wasn't too shocked by that. The script I actually liked a lot, so I mean, obviously, you know, from what I've seen so far this year, I wouldn't mind it being nominated, but of course, like I said, that's just from what I've seen. Now, as far as what's probably going to get nominated, yeah, you've got Jojo Rabbit, you've got The Irishman, you've got tons of other stuff that'll probably get, you know, be way ahead of it. But anyways, and yeah, Constance Wu, I really liked her a lot last year in Crazy Rich Asians. She is very much was convincing me in this film that, yeah, she's an actress to look out for. She really gives it her all and bats 1,000 in this film. It's a terrific performance. Especially there's a couple scenes with her and the Julia Stiles, who plays the a journalist in the film. There's a couple scenes between them that are very, very good. And even for Jennifer Lopez, who, you know, I mean, you look at Geely, you look at, you know, obviously there's a couple films like Out of Sight and a few others that people, I haven't seen tons of her. I'm not an expert by any means in her filmography, but I liked her a lot in this. There were enough good scenes and everything. I'm like, I can understand the argument for her to be nominated. And, yeah, for my money right now, would I nominate her? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, in the whole grand scheme of the field and everything, that's going to have to wait to be seen. But, I mean, if Lady Gaga got nominated for her performance last year, yeah, I don't see any reason why Lopez won't get nominated for this. So I have put her in for supporting actress for now. She's in that 4th or 5th slot, kind of sliding there in between. But again, I think, celebrity talks in that way, and I think people are supporting the film. It's probably going to cross 100 million at the domestic box office here within the next couple weeks. And it's, obviously, like I said, very high critically rated. Comes from a female writer-director. So I think there'll be support enough for the film, and especially around her performance, so that becomes a winning scenario for that film. If she gets nominated, even if she turns out to be the only nominee for the film, I still think people will celebrate that. And especially, and I remember it just totally, because through the film, I'm like, yeah, I said she's doing really well. She's really holding her own. There's definitely, obviously there's a lot of Scorsese-esque moments in this, especially like the opening shot, or one of the opening shots is like a tracking shot is very reminiscent of the restaurant scene in Goodfellas and stuff. And there's a couple shots, like there's one shot that follows Lopez down the streets of New York, and then she gets to an ATM and then freeze, and then she has to, hands behind her, hands up and everything. Yeah, so there's even some good. Technically, I think it's a film that I think people will have on their radar, maybe higher than some other films out there. So again, I'm not saying that's a guarantee that it's going to get 5-6 nominations at the end of the day, but yeah, even as it went on, though, there was that end scene. It's basically one of Lopez's last scenes. Again, I don't want to give way too much away if you haven't seen it yet, and I do recommend you do see this one. I did like it a lot. There's a scene where she where she's talking to Julie Stiles' character, and she pulls out some photographs, and she pulls out some stuff she says she always keeps with her. And I mean, as soon as that clip was starting, and you kind of see Lopez's reaction to everything that she pulls out, I'm like, this is her Oscar clip. I'm like, this is 100%. I'm going to see this clip like 3 or 4 times through the year now. There's a couple scenes where she gets in a little argumentative with the Constance Wu character and stuff. So I'm like, and then it ends with her like, looking up and kind of there's a little bit of emotion in her eyes. She's like, so what else do you want to know? I'm like, that's her Oscar clip. All right. I just immediately just clicked with me. I'm like, yep. Okay. That's done. That feels like she's at least for the foreseeable future, a likely nominee. Then again, I can also see her kind of being like a Albert Brooks, or like a even you could argue last year with Emily Blunt, where she just gets nominated everywhere and then comes up short at the Oscars. Or Timothée Chalamet also last year. And you can make that same argument too. It's like Beautiful Boy last year with Timothée Chalamet really wasn't looking very strong in any category except for supporting actor for him. You could argue that's probably going to be the case too for Hustlers, and again, unless maybe the script comes through or something like that, or something off like that. But where it's like if and the difference here, of course, is that Hustlers is already a pretty big box office hit, whereas Beautiful Boy was kind of looked at as a disappointment at the box office, as well as in its critical run, as well as in its awards run. So. Yeah, I get it, but it's like I see those two scenarios playing out, but right now I think the former of those is going to play out. I think she will end up with a nomination. Okay, what else have I seen here? Ad Astra, I did finally see. Actually, just saw that yesterday. I'll tell you what, I really did enjoy this film. Again, I kind of talked about it early on and said the marketing hadn't sold me yet, and I ended up seeing it. Man, I would love to see this film get nominated for like production design, cinematography. Actually, and it might be criminal to say it, but I think Brad Pitt's, between his performance here and in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he gives a better performance here. Obviously, it's a lead performance. There's a lot more screen time with him here, even though he's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood quite a bit. Man, there's some really good stuff, and it's a much deeper dive into his character than I thought we would get, just, based on the trailers. I thought it was just going to be him as Action Man running around from the moon to here to all over the galaxy and all that. But it's like, no, there's some deep dives with this character. There's a couple moments where it's just him on screen for good 10, 15-minute stretches and stuff. And, for a lot of the movies that have done that recently with, like, Gravity and Interstellar and you could even argue First Man, it's like, between all those, I think Ad Astra might be the one that I go back and rewatch the most of those. Certainly, there's definitely Interstellar-esque moments here, especially with the kind of heart-pulling, family relations kind of deal. because like the basic story is that Tommy Lee Jones is Brad Pitt's father, and he's gone out into the galaxy, out to Neptune years and years ago, disappeared. But as we see in the trailers, now Brad Pitt has to kind of go out and figure out, okay, is he dead? Is he alive? Is he responsible? Because there's some stuff going on Earth that that is catastrophic, that could do some damage and stuff. So is he responsible for it? Is he turned into a total villain and stuff? And that's the thing too. If you see this movie, don't go if you're going to see like Liv Tyler or Ruth Negga or Donald Sutherland or anybody else in the cast, because they're pretty much, especially the Liv Tyler character, she's like 2 scenes and she's done. Ruth Negga has like 2 big scenes, and then there's like 1 smaller scene, and then she's done. Tommy Lee Jones, again, if you're going to see it, he only shows up later on. I don't want to give way too much away. And I also did like some of the, especially the stuff that they shoot, special effects-wise too, visual effects-wise. I would also, again, love to see it nominated. All the stuff like around the planets, it does look very Kubrick 2001-esque, and it looks gorgeous. Absolutely looks gorgeous. So I would, again, cinematographer is the same one, Hoyte van Hoyema, or whatever his name is. Same guy who did Interstellar and Dunkirk and stuff. I wouldn't mind seeing him nominated for this. He really did, above and beyond, he did a really good job on this. Again, I wouldn't mind seeing Brad Pitt nominated. So this one, Hustlers, by the way, I think was an 8 out of 10 for me. This one was a 9 out of 10. I really did enjoy the movie, and some of the action beats, especially you see it in the trailers, the kind of dune buggy battle that goes on, actually was really, really good. I really fully enjoyed that one. Okay, what else have I seen? Then the last one is Joker and Judy too, but I wanted to talk about Judy next. Yeah, since I've seen this one, and that is that I have changed one thing across the board of all my predictions going forward, and that is Best Actress is done. It's Renee Zellweger. Having seen the film, it's Renee Zellweger. And overall, this one I gave Judy a 7 out of 10. I didn't love this movie, but Renee Zellweger is so strong in this movie. Unbelievably great performance. Absolutely above and beyond. This is the best thing she's ever done. Because not only does she have, and I think a little bit of makeup is involved here too and stuff, but her look, she looks like Judy Garland, and especially when she sings, she sounds like Judy Garland. She has the mannerisms of what we know of Judy Garland. And by the way, I'm not like a guy who's read 6 Judy Garland biopics or anything. Or biographical books or anything. Nothing like that. But, man, it just, in all honesty, I will say I was a little, the trailers hadn't really sold me, so I kind of had put her on the 4th or the 5th slot in that. And plus, Renee really, truthfully hasn't done anything Oscar relevant in, you could argue since Cold Mountain or, God, did she do anything after Cold Mountain that was up for Oscars? I can't even remember. But still, this was clearly going to be her, first attempt at an Oscar for a while. But man, I was a little skeptical going into it. But yeah, from the moment it started, I'm like, okay, yeah, she's definitely a solid contender here. Then she starts. It's about 30, 40 minutes in before she sings for the first time, and once she does, I was like, I kind of sighed and kind of leaned back in my seat a little bit. I saw it at like a 1 o'clock screening, and there was like one other person in the room. But I was like, I kind of said softly to myself, I'm like, okay, it's over. She wins. I kind of said that, and then it just kept going, and she does the trolley song, she does a couple show tune songs, and of course, I don't think this is a big spoiler in any way, but of course she has to do Over the Rainbow at some point. And in all honesty, I will say this too. I teared up. I did, and I did shed a couple tears for the Over the Rainbow section, because it was just kind of dawned. I'm like, this is the closest I'm ever going to get to seeing Judy fucking Garland, perform live for me, and it's like, it was an emotional experience in that way, kind of the same way. And I told my friends this because 5 years ago now, I saw the Wizard of Oz re-released. I think it was like a 75th anniversary screening or whatever. And I did, when Over the Rainbow came on, I did it got me emotionally. I didn't cry at that point, but I was like, man, I said, I've seen this movie so many times. Grew up with the tape and everything and all that. I used to actually skip over the songs because I wanted to get to like Wicked Witch stuff, or I wanted to get to the Journey stuff and the scary stuff. But still, it's like, having seen that film so many times, it was still seeing it in the theater, that great a sound system, all that stuff kind of, I'm somebody who loves to support and see old movies back on the big screen. Like I just saw, the same day I saw Hustlers, I also saw they had a 25th anniversary of Shawshank Redemption on screen. I love seeing old movies like that on screen because it's a different experience. You can see it how many hundreds of times at home, especially for somebody like me. It's like movies that came out way before I had the chance to see them in the theater. So it does make a difference, and it is it's a different experience on the screen. I always like to do that, but yeah, and I told my friends back in college days, and they were like, "What? You're a pussy." But still, it was like, say what you will, but yeah, I was really, again, that brought back those memories and everything. Now, as far as the film itself, especially in the third act, there are several predictable moments. There's something that happens, again, I don't want to give it away, but it's like her relationship with another character in the film, and it's like, okay, you totally see where that's going to go. There's one part toward the end that is totally predictable. It involves her coming back on stage and stuff. It's again, very predictable. And yeah, there were some sections that kind of dragged a little bit, but overall, I think her performance is just so strong that it does more than make up for the film. I put it on the same level as like Black Mass a few years ago, where it's like I enjoy the movie enough, but man, Johnny Depp really dove into the character of whatever the character's name was. I forget the gangster he played in that. And it's like, it's actually like, even though it's a lot of makeup and stuff too for him, it was like, man, there was a lot of performance going on there as shit, I'll remember it later what his character name was, but Whitey Bulger, there we go. And in the same way here, it's like it's just such a deep dive and so committed a performance that it's, again, I kind of said the first thing I thought of was, this is going to have to be a very competitive year for her to lose Best Actress. I mean, very, very competitive year. And again, I haven't seen like Scarlett Johansson in The Marriage Story. Nobody's seen Saoirse Ronan yet in Little Women, which I had pegged earlier to win. So it's not locked up at this point, but it just I got that feeling where yeah, it was like, damn, it's like this might be over. So yeah. Now, I did also see Joker, of course, but I want to save this for the end. Spoiler alert, there's going to be a rant involved here. Not around the film, but around something else around the film. And it is something relevant, something that involves the Oscar consideration and conversations and all that. So I do want to save that for the end, but still. Another thing, of course, that we can't go on without talking, and this is a big deal, of course, for the Oscar race here in the past week or two, has been that we've now seen The Irishman screen at New York Film Festival a few times. And 3 hour and 29-minute movie that it is, showing on Netflix as it is, about white old men, of course, the big target for the woke culture nowadays, and of course, for Oscar voters, something that, obviously a lot of them fit in that crowd, but then there's also people that want to fight against that crowd in the Oscar culture and all that. Say as you will, Irishman is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, 62 reviews. Last I've counted here, I can update it again and make sure, yeah, it's 100%. And average rating, I remember I was initially shocked. It was like an 8.0 out of 10 initially, and then it went up to like an 8.5. Then it was a 9. Then it was like a 9.1. It's gone back down to an 8.9 right now. But still, I mean, holy shit, how good is this movie going to be? Because I liked the first trailer enough. It was, it was a nice teaser. That second trailer, I was like, okay, now I'm starting to see more of what the actual story is. Now, okay, this is how Pesci plays into this. This is, obviously, this is what this character is involved. We see Harvey Keitel a little bit. We see a little bit of Ray Romano's character and how he's going to be involved in this and stuff. And true, some of the de-aging stuff is not working for me 100%. Like there's one shot in the trailer where it's De Niro and he's in the army outfit. He's got the helmet on. He shoots a guy or whatever. It looks like a video game. That part did, but overall, I think the de-aging so far it's there. You can see it and everything. But I feel like once the movie plays and everything, I feel like it's gonna work. And obviously, there is a lot of stuff too that is them at their actual ages now and stuff. So I'm sure that stuff will work as well. But yeah, I'm still as far as the acting nominations for this go, I have put De Niro back in over Michael B. Jordan for lead actor, so he's my 5th nominee now. And I still have Pesci in for supporting actor, but I don't know. Some people are saying Pacino is actually kind of the bigger player here for supporting actor. So I'm still, kind of wrestling with that. Part of me thinks that, and that's the argument too. Both Pacino and Pesci already have an Oscar. Pacino won his more recently, and Pesci, won his actually just 2 years earlier for another Scorsese gangster film. So it's like they both kind of have that argument. Pacino overall has, of course, way more nominations, and he's been around a lot longer in the Oscar field and everything. But man, I don't know. I'll have to wait until I can see the film, probably in sometime in November. I don't know if it plays at a theater I can see it, then I'll probably try to see it in theater first before Netflix. But definitely, I think it's the weekend of Thanksgiving. I think it comes out on Netflix. I think that's the weekend. Or it comes out. I think on the 27th, which is the day before Thanksgiving. I definitely, and I know I've got, my dad does usually really like the Scorsese films, except he didn't like Wolf of Wall Street, but he likes Goodfellas. If Casino's on, he'll usually watch it. My brother is the same way. So it's like, I might just, and I keep telling these guys, my folks and stuff, I'm like, it's 3 hours, 29 minutes. They're like, oh God. And then I'm like, no, wait, it's on Netflix, so you can pause whenever you want and walk away and come back to it later. And they're like, oh, okay. So it sounds more amenable to them. So, this might be one, where I actually get to sit with my whole family and watch a movie like that, which, for an Oscar movie, most of the time it's like, I see it first, then if it's something I think they'll like, then I'll show them. But no. Like, it's like last night I told my folks about Joker because I knew, and I kind of spoiled everything because I knew it was not going to be a film for them. But that being said, though, I do think now, The Irishman, I initially had kind of said, and I didn't want to say it, too far because, obviously it's way too early and all that. But I felt like Marriage Story was definitely going to be the bigger contender for Netflix this year because they were playing it longer theatrically before it went on Netflix. I think it comes out the first weekend of November theatrically in limited release or whatever, and then it's not streaming on Netflix till the first weekend of December, which The Irishman gets, I think, 3 weeks. It gets... it's like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then Marriage Story gets 5 or something, whatever. It gets an extra week. Plus, they had debuted Marriage Story at Venice, and it had also played at Toronto. It played at Telluride. It pretty much hit everywhere it could. I believe it was also at New York. I could be wrong about that. I didn't look up the full schedule for New York. But yeah, it seemed like that was the one they really wanted to showboat around. And it also, I believe, and I still have all 4 of them in, but this could be the first Netflix film, as well as the first film in over 5 years to get 4 acting nominations in there. So, 1 in each category, of course. So, yeah, so I kept looking at it, and then I'm like, plus, Noah Baumbach has been somebody I think the Academy has wanted to give something to. This could be his big chance. I feel like I initially felt that, so I didn't want to say, I didn't want to go too far as to say The Irishman is going to be a disappointment, it's going to bomb or whatever. I didn't want to say that, because it is Scorsese, it is this cast, it's a gangster film, so, most of the time that's turned out really well for them, for him at the Oscars and stuff. But yeah, so I was like, a little hesitant to go that far, but I was still, still kind of think, I'm like, The Irishman might be a disappointment compared to, maybe the de-aging, they really invested in that, and Scorsese really believed in it, and it just didn't turn out. But so far, it sounds like, there's a few critics of it, still. Obviously, there's a few critics that are complaining about its length, and then some people that didn't really go for it, but there's some people that said it's actually a lot funnier than a lot of the other Scorsese films. There's a lot more actual emotion to it, some sadness, actually, some people have said. So yeah, this sounds, it sounded excellent to me from the beginning. The overall story of De Niro's character is supposedly the guy who shot Jimmy Hoffa and who knows where his body is, maybe, and all that stuff, and kind of the saga around that and everything, and how he got to that place and what he's done since and all that. So it's like that stuff is, obviously it's like that sounds interesting to me. But yeah, since then it's like I'm pretty much like almost to the point where I'm counting down the days before till I can see it. But yeah, it does definitely, this bumps it back up, I think, in the Oscar race, more so than maybe it was before. Okay, now let's get to the Joker in the room, shall we? Now, I wanted to say something before I get to the initial initial reaction to the film. And this is where the rant aspect kind of comes in here. And that is that, and I wanted to speak about this before the film came out. I wanted to speak about it when it was happening. but I didn't want to come off as a hypocrite, frankly. So, and I might still come off that way, but I feel like I have to say something. And I try not to get too political on just the show here and stuff. On these videos and stuff. I don't try to get too political. I don't try to go out of my way to, piss somebody off or anything. I just say what I believe is, what I believe in, or I, tell things as I see them and stuff. And frankly, the media reaction to this film before it came out fucking pissed me off. It fucking pissed me off so bad because there was stuff on CNN, there was stuff on Fox News, there was stuff on, everywhere you could see, and pretty much the studio, the director, cast, everybody had to react to it, and that is that there was very much a concern, and, I have something wood to knock on. They were worried that there were going to be mass shootings in the theater as this thing opened this weekend. And actually, true story, I remember when I saw it yesterday, it was a 6 o'clock show in the evening, and I walked out because I saw Ad Astra beforehand, and I got out of that, and there was about a 5-minute wait between the previews starting for Joker and when Ad Astra ended. And I walked out, and there was nobody in the main complex of I was at an AMC theater. It was, nobody in the complex at all. I'm like, okay, that's really weird. I'm like, usually around this time on like a Friday night, it's like there should be 50 people walking around at this point or something. Whether it's people leaving other theaters, because their movie's wrapped up, or if it's people going to the next showings and stuff. I'm like, this is weird. This is weird. And of course, I walk around, and there's it looks like 2 cops and a couple managers, whatever, are out and stuff. So I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, they're seriously, and I'm somebody who lives, the theater that I went to here, the town is like 100,000 people, or maybe a little over 100,000, or a little under, give or take. And there's people that bleed over from a sister city that has 600,000, so it's like there's enough people that'll come there and stuff. So I'm like, even here where I'm at, it's like they're really worried about people shooting up, because it's like obviously Aurora, Colorado, of course, was a big concern. And I don't want to take anything away from it. I mean, obviously, I've gone to the movies all my life. So the fact that, some people are worried about, people being safe in a place where they can go and do as something as innocent as seeing a movie, yeah, that's something I don't want to see happen. I don't want to make light of that at all. But at the same time, it's like, man, this feels like it went up to a fever pitch because there was nothing else for these fucking news corporations to talk about. There was absolutely and again, this is where I wanted to get into the hypocritical part of it. But let me finish where I was going with that. So I got into the theater and stuff, and the movie. I mean, it's like the previews are just done, and the movie is starting, and all of a sudden, the door I can see open one more time, and in walks a cop, and he sits in the front row. And I'm like, it's seriously, it made my heart beat kind of intense a little bit, because I'm like, what if nothing happens for the whole country, but in the one theater I'm at, the one showtime I'm at, something happens? And of course it didn't. But it's like it did. It seriously kind of elevated my heart, and it made me a little more tense as the film started rolling. Because I'm like, shit. I'm like, what if? It's like, what if? And this was my big concern, and this is where the rant comes in. What if those fucking news corporations caused this to fucking happen? And I don't want to make light of this at all, because what happened in Aurora 7 years ago was nothing less of a tragedy. And it's nothing less of, anything that should make you feel anything except sadness and anger. Anger that it had happened, sadness that so many people were affected by it, and, and all that. And then we saw subsequently the second Expendables movie a few weeks later. There were gun threats, and there were people that tried to get into the theaters with guns and stuff. And it became, something we hadn't seen, you could argue, since, what was the one Spike Lee film where people, were getting shot outside the theater, I can't remember it, but anyways, but it's like, really, it's something that only comes up every now and again, and it's like, it was very much like the media was trying to hype this up as, oh, it's going to be disappointing if something doesn't happen, and that was very much the attitude that I saw some journalists take to this, where it's like, the filmmakers should be ashamed of themselves for making something like that. It's like, you should be fucking ashamed of yourself, because you might cause this, you dumb assholes. Stupid news media people. And and this is, I don't want to go way too far in this, but with CNN and with Fox News, that's the problem with the fucking country today. It is. It is absolutely, if I can step in my soapbox 1 second here, there is no such thing as the truth anymore. There is truth, capital T on this side, truth, capital T on this side. I'm looking for the fucking middle, truth with a lowercase t. I want to know what the fucking facts are, Jack. Just the facts, ma'am. Where's Jack Webb when we need him? Seriously. That's, so I largely ignore what this side says, what this side says on the major news corporations. I don't. I get my news elsewhere, all right? So, and I don't, I don't respect at all that people were talking about this a month, a week or 2 weeks ahead of it. Because in all honesty, you're amping up the wish for something like this to happen. Again, like I said, I take, going to the movies very seriously, just in the respect of it should be a safe haven. It should be a place where people from all sorts of denominations, all sorts of races, all sorts of creeds come together for one shared experience. The lights go down, you're in the dark, you're all eating popcorn together or eating your snacks or whatever, and you see a movie. How you see it and how it lands on you and all that stuff, that's a different deal. Everybody takes away what they will. But they all share that same experience of they're in a dark room together. It's 100 strangers, 200 strangers, thousands of strangers if it's a big movie palace, or even if it's a small theater, it's just 2 strangers, like it was with me in the Judy screening. It's like you get that shared experience of doing that. Where else does that happen? You could argue that happens at sporting events, but even for me, it's like I mostly go to like local sporting events. So it's like, hey, I know that guy. I know like 90% of the people in the room. It's only the 10% on the other side I don't know. Rooting on the other team or whatever. But it's like that doesn't happen in that way. And even then, you could argue, a lot of people, especially small town living, where it's like you go to the sporting events and stuff. It's like, yeah, a lot of people, you'll know these people from your church, these people from your work and all that stuff. So you don't have that stranger experience. It's like, where else does that happen? And that's something I never want to see go away. Even as the Netflixes of the worlds and the Disney Pluses of the worlds and all this stuff kind of more or less threaten the idea of theatrical experiences. It's like, at the same time, it's like, I just hope it never, ever goes away. And seriously, for these journalists to be so irresponsible as to pump up really they're pumping up the iron on this, pumping up the volume on this, to suggest, it's like, and I don't want to take anything lightly on this, but still, it's a ridiculous joke to think that, and there's been tons of evidence and studies and stuff to show this, but what movie has there been, or what video game has there been, where we've seen a mass thing happen around it, where it's caused violence? Do you know anything? I mean, do kids all of a sudden start shooting each other because of Fortnite? No. All that stuff, because what happens in Joker, there's a particular scene, which is actually my favorite part of the movie, that happens right before, it's in the last half hour or so. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But there's a particular scene that happens that feels, and was shot very realistically, where it feels like, holy shit, this could actually happen on live television. And it's, and it can be played out to people. Again, I don't want to give way too much away. Because this is a film I think you should see knowing as little as you can, or having, if you've seen just one of the trailers, that's fine. Go and see it. Don't get worried about the spoilers. And don't, seriously, I don't get the idea that people believe that video games, that movies and all that cause violence and all that. And especially realistic films like Joker, Clockwork Orange, Taxi Driver, a couple other films that people have pointed to and stuff. And some of those films, by the way, were an inspiration for Joker, absolutely. But I would argue, and several other people, including Kubrick himself, argued this back 30, 40 years ago. 30 years ago when Full Metal Jacket came out. He kind of made the same argument where he's like, it wasn't, it was realistic images like what we saw in Vietnam played back on TV that really made people more understanding and, more, against violence. Whereas, you could argue the Tom and Jerry cartoons where it's, bump on the head, and you move on. That was he specifically cited Tom and Jerry at the time and said, that's more dangerous to kids because that shows kids, you can bump each other in the head with baseball bats and that's not going to do anything. Or, catch your hand in a mouse trap. That's not going to do it. Tom and Jerry, Tom walks it off and he's back 20 seconds later trying to catch Jerry again. And you could argue even something this year like Avengers Endgame. There's a moment where Thanos' ship, spoiler alert, sorry, but it's been out for months, where he blows up the Avengers complex. And it's like all the Avengers survive. And it's like, no, try that in real life. See what happens. All those characters are dead. like, everybody's dead. He blew up the whole building. And it's like, no, all the Avengers survive. I get it's a movie. I get it. But it's like, I would argue, yeah, stuff like that. Or I just watched, actually just today, rewatched Spider-Man Homecoming, or Far From Home, the newest one. And it's like, yeah, there's stuff that happens to Peter and to Nick Fury and stuff in that movie where it's like, no, try that at home. It's not going to happen. And it's like, and for, especially kids to see it, it's like, oh, that just, you could argue, that shows kids, hey, they'll just, anything that's life-threatening, they'll just walk it off. They'll brush themselves on all. Whereas the realistic violence, very much, I think, and it's done well in Joker, where it's like, no, this shows people, and especially if there are youngsters watching and all that, no. Realistic violence, it shows them, okay, don't do this. It doesn't encourage it. And again, there's been studies that prove that is the case. There's been, all sorts of other examples you could point to, I'm sure. You could argue, and some people did over the past couple weeks, I said, what about John Wick? It's like John Wick kills 200 people in whatever the most recent movie. I don't watch those movies because the first one I didn't care for very much. But yeah, again, personal comments aside, I'm sure that's going to be the most controversial comment I make today. But no, it's like he kills like 200 people and people in the film, and people in the audience cheer for him. They're happy to see John Wick kill people. It's like, whereas Joker in this movie, I don't think I'm giving way too much away here, but he kills 5 people, maybe. I think 5. Yeah, he kills. It's obviously it's a small number. But it's like, and yeah, it is more realistic. Yeah, it does. It looks more, like it could happen and everything. And that's not to take anything away from John Wick. That's obviously a totally different film. But you could almost argue that, yeah, the killing 200 people and having the audiences react to that in that way almost encourages that behavior. It's almost like, oh yeah, just kill 200 people. It's no problem. Whereas this, and it's more cartoonish, I believe, in the John Wick films from what I've seen and stuff. But still, it's like, no, it's like, I would argue the more realistic stuff leaves a bigger impact and makes you say, oh, no, this is bad stuff. In the same way that Kubrick argued, seeing stuff from the Vietnam War played across TV, real images, graphic, grisly images, made us want to get out of Vietnam even quicker. So, again, and if this comes up again, I'm going to have the same reaction, where it's like, if the goddamn 24-hour news fucking media that, figured it out years ago, that there's not enough hard, actual news, so we have to start, stirring the pot, and basically that's my argument the whole time here. Both sides of the aisle are basically trying to stir the pot faster and more furious than the other side, and whoever gets that prize wins. It's like, bullshit! Bullshit! Get to the actual fucking news. Don't bring this stuff up. I could argue that, this movie would have done even better this weekend, and it's already going to do very, very well. Talking 90+ million. The early numbers are, at least, from what I've seen. It's like, it could have done better if, I'm sure there's people that wanted to wait this out because they're afraid that especially in major metropolitan areas, because they're worried that some freakazoid is going to go in there and have a gun and try to shoot people. And again, I don't want to take anything away, light of that situation. I don't want to make light of that. But at the same time, it makes me say, and I think most people have argued this point already. I just want to agree with them, and that is, people who are mentally disturbed to that point, where they go in a public place, do a public thing like that, and do something violent to themselves or to others. Yeah, it's definitely not something that you make light of. But a lot of those people, I would say 99% of those people, they have already had stuff happen to them, or they've made the decisions in their minds already to do that. It's not external factors like a film like this, or a video game like X, or insert name of video game here, that makes them do it. It's a lot of other stuff. But what if some of those people, they do see something like that? They see the news media talking about it. They see major news corporations talking about it, and they're like, oh, well, that's an idea. Okay, now what do you do? Now you're probably going to go back on the news network, right? You fucking journalists, goddamn pricks, and you're going to go back on there and say, I told you. Yeah, and you caused it, fuckers. God, it just pisses me off beyond all belief. It does. So, so that's my rant on that. So, okay, yeah. How did I feel about Joker? It's good. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but it's good. I feel, and obviously this was going to be the big thing going into this film Oscar-wise, and that's Joaquin Phoenix was going to be the big takeaway, and he doesn't let down at all. No. It's a very deep, again, similar to Renee Zellweger and Judy. It's a deep character dive. It's a very, very character, very much a character study about this guy, the Joker, and who, Arthur Fleck in this case, how he turns into the Joker and stuff. And it's one of Joaquin's better performances of his career. Yeah, it's without a doubt, some great stuff there. And all that, and I felt like the supporting cast for the most part was really good. It was, Francis Conroy gets some good scenes. De Niro even gets a couple of good scenes, especially toward the end. The Zazie Beetz character was kind of interesting. But my, where I kind of come down in the film a little bit and get a little critical of it is, the actual Joker doesn't really play into it until later in the film. And it's almost a little, by that point, I'm like, okay, I was kind of, it's a nice build-up to get to this point, and there's enough interesting stuff going on that I didn't just, sit back and say, okay, where's Joker? Okay, there he is. Oh, but no, there was enough interesting stuff around Arthur and his story, the other characters and interactions with him and stuff, that I did keep my interest through it. That wasn't a problem or anything. But I still felt that there were again some spots that were kind of a little draggy for me, going in the first 3 acts, and then finally for the first hour and a half or so, and then it was really in the last half hour that I really started to enjoy myself. And like I said, there is one scene later on. It's kind of an extended scene with Joaquin and De Niro and a couple other characters that really I think became the strongest moment of the film. And it was actually like Todd Phillips as a writer in this case. He's one of the writers in the film. He really makes some intriguing points, and he really, through the vice of Joker, through that character that's kind of his loudspeaker, he kind of makes some points that are absolutely relevant. There's particularly one line where Joaquin Phoenix's Joker says, you guys get to stomp all over us, and then you get to tell us what's funny and stuff like that, and all that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we especially saw that, again, not to go too far political here, we just saw that with the Dave Chappelle Netflix special and all that, which I've seen. I saw the first 45, 50 minutes of it or so. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not a big, just to go into that really quick, I'm not a big Dave Chappelle fan by any means. It's not like I, worship it as idol or anything, but it's like, there were some parts that I laughed at. There were definitely some parts that were, pretty far, but I still kind of chuckled at them. And then there were some parts where I was like, yeah, that wasn't funny. But it's like, yeah, it's like anything else. And obviously, yeah, that whole woke culture and all that, it's like, there's just so much of that cancel culture and stuff that I'm just very much, no, guys, no, take it easy. But still, and I feel like Todd Phillips was definitely kind of fighting against that a little bit in the film and through the Joker character and stuff. And obviously, the Joker is the villain of the piece. He's not the hero by any means, but it's a really interesting, moment there. So I loved that scene and how that scene ended and everything. I was like, wow. I'm like, this was kind of the film that I was thinking. I was, again, kind of similar to the Tarantino film this year. It's like, it kind of, by the end, finds its footing to the place where I'm like, this is kind of the film I thought I was going to see. Not to say that I didn't enjoy what was there beforehand, but it's just, what was there beforehand worked, but it was kind of, there were some parts that didn't work for me. That just didn't, kind of drag their feet and stuff. And then especially, there is some stuff at the very end, and that's kind of where some people are very, especially critics, are split on the film. So far, I think audiences are just loving this movie. But yeah, there's some stuff toward the end where I'm like, oh, that narrative choice, I don't really get it. There's a couple parts, especially going into the third act, actually. There's one part especially, I was just shaking my head because it was just the biggest plot convenience you could ever think of. And I don't want to give it away, but it involves Joaquin in a foot chase in a subway car. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. But it was just the biggest plot convenience I've ever seen in my life. It was like, okay, you literally painted yourself into a corner and you got out of it by doing the silliest thing you could. And it's stuff like that really took me out of the movie. And that happens, I think, one other time. I don't want, again, spoiler-wise, I don't want to get into it yet. But maybe later on I'll talk about it. But yeah, and I do want to see this again eventually. Maybe not right away, but kind of similar. It's like I liked it, but I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It was kind of how I felt about another Todd Phillips production a year ago, Star is Born. But in the same way, it's like, yeah, this one, as far as the rest of the Oscar stuff I can talk about, I think there's a chance that this does kind of creep up in the... Sorry, my computer just went away there. Hopefully the image and everything's okay. But like the cinematography especially, I thought was really well done. The score was pretty awesome. Hildur something or other, her last name. I'll learn it eventually. But actually, I can look it up now. Okay, what did I hit? Sorry. Okay, now this went all over the place. Anyways, but... yeah, here we go. I'm going to find out her name now because she did a good job. Hildur, oh, maybe, yeah, okay, I'll have to hear it first. Cinematography, by the way, was Lawrence Sher. Good job on that. And then Hildur Guadanatir, something like that. Once I hear it, I'll figure it out. But no, I thought the score was very effective, especially, as we get into the later stuff. Very, very effective. And all that. Obviously, I think, the makeup could easily be nominated for this. The production design, it's set in the 80s and all that, but it's like, outside of a couple elements, it just really feels like it could take place today, and all that. But, and obviously, some of the stuff with, like, the cultural relevance and all that, it's like, I like that sometimes in movies. And in this case, like I said, there were some moments that really worked with that. Then other moments where it was like, it tried to be really relevant and it just kind of, It landed, but I saw what they were going for, but it didn't have as big an impact, or as big a, something like that where it really, was stuck in my mind that way. And speaking of, there was another moment. There's, again, toward the end of that one moment I was talking about, that big extended scene. There's another moment that really took me out of it, and it's a nod, I guess, to Network. Again, if you've seen the film and you've seen Network, you know what I'm talking about, but, and I was kind of, as it happens, I'm kind of waiting for the narrator to come back in and says, that was the story of Howard Beale. It's like, I really was just waiting for that narration to come, and it felt like it was going to be that. So it took me out of it, but like I said, I saw what they were going for, but it kind of rubbed me like, oh, they're just ripping off Network. But still, it's like, okay, and like I said, there was a lot of this movie that I did like, and overall, Joaquin, obviously he's got a physical transformation in this film. A lot of great acting, obviously just with facial expressions. Some of the dancing stuff actually was another thing that took me out of it. I thought, it was kind of a little self-indulgent in that way. But again, that's some people will probably like that stuff more than I will. But like I said, the score, the cinematography, I could easily see nominated. Makeup, his performance, and I do have it in that 10th slot right now for Best Picture in case it magically lands on 10 nominations again. But again, I'm not, and with all this stuff with the fucking news media, and especially if we do see something happen in the next, weeks as it goes on in release, I think any news like that is really going to hurt it for the Oscars and stuff. I think Joaquin feels, and I have said this as such in the past, but even though critics are overall relatively split on this film, it's not 50-50, but it's very much like a 60-40 deal right now, close to that. The seemingly one untouchable aspect is Joaquin's performance. That seems to be the one takeaway. Everybody's like, no. Even if I don't like the movie, if I don't like the cultural relevance it's trying to go for, and in some people said it just didn't land for him, or I don't like its message, or this and that. Still, even those people are saying, oh yeah, Joaquin just knocks it out of the park as the Joker. And again, this is like, as soon as they announced it was going to be Joaquin playing Joker, I'm like, yeah, sign me up. That sounds awesome, because you could argue he's one of the best top 5 actors working in Hollywood today. So, and usually he does the PTA films and the more independent stuff. For him to do, you could argue this is a tentpole film to do that. That doesn't happen very often. So, I think overall, again, there's enough in the film that I really enjoyed, especially as we got into some of that later stuff that I really liked. And there's one moment that is very reminiscent of It, very much remind me of Pennywise, where he's like, where he's trying to bite the kid's arm off in the first one. There's a moment like that with Joker and one of his victims in this, or potential victims. I don't want to give too much away again. That really, there's not a lot of humor in this film. It does very much play it straight through most of it, but God, when it did go for that kind of very dark humor, I laughed. And I really, especially again, that one scene I'm talking about, there's a moment where it's a very dark humor moment where he's, again, I wish I could, I want to talk about it so bad because it's just so great, but I can't. I don't want to give anything away. So, But there's a couple of very dark humor moments that I just said I would even argue I wanted more of that. But because it's Joker after all, you do want a little bit of, and there is actually a little bit, like the final shot has some levity in it. I don't want to give too much away. And again, some of the narrative choices around that, and especially around the very last scene, it's like it did very much like, okay, you think, and this has been my attitude about a lot of that stuff. And again, there's a very clear, a couple alternatives I looked to, and I actually described this to my parents last night when I was, giving my review of the film. But there's a narrative catch to this film that is a common one. It happens often, I think less so today than it did, like, say, 20, 30 years ago. You could even argue 10 years ago, but it's a thing that I most of the time it just absolutely rubs me the wrong way. Like, oh, come on, you couldn't, you had to pull that stunt, and it's done there. There's a couple other moments where it's kind of hinted at. But and again, I'm sure other critics will spoil it. So if you haven't, then I won't spoil you in case. But anyways, again, I don't know how far I want to go into this before maybe a couple months down the road. I'll obviously give a lot more details about it. Like if this ends up in the Best Picture category, I might complain a little bit and say I cannot understand how a film that blah 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 did this is still a Best Picture nominee this year. It's like, but still. That being said, there is a little narrative catch to this film. I'm trying to be as vague as I can, but I'm sure if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. That I just didn't. It did rub me the wrong way a little bit, where I'm like, oh, okay, why not just do the alternative to that? But yeah, okay. Yeah, overall, like I said, there's enough stuff that I didn't get offended by it or anything. I didn't, turn off and say, oh no, I don't like this movie now. But no, and there is some good work from the cast, especially Joaquin, of course. The script has a few good moments. There's one line again, it's in that big scene, but it's a big payoff line. And I'm like, that's the Joker. That's the Joker talking, and it's this R-rated, more crude version of the Joker. I'm like, that's the Joker. It's like there's a couple, because again, he doesn't really fully transform into this Joker type character until later on in the film. But once it's there, it's like, oh, all right, this is what I was really, hoping for. And not to say that a film like this is perfect if he becomes Joker within the first 20 minutes. Obviously, yeah, it's a little rushed at that point. But still, it's like, oh man, if this movie had another like maybe 5 minutes or so with him like full on as Joker, like as he is toward the end, then maybe I would have liked it a little more. But still, again, beggars can't be choosers too far in that. So overall, I gave this one an 8 out of 10. I think there's, again, strong moments to it. The script overall, I think, works. There's a couple of narrative choices that I really, liked through it, but then there's other narrative choices that I didn't care for, but again, didn't totally ruin the experience for me. Okay, I feel like we covered a lot of ground there. I feel like we've hit some different highs and lows. So yeah, overall, as far as the actual predictions go, again, not too many changes. Just real quick to get into this. I know we've been here a while, so I wanted to try to keep this as relatively on topic as I can. I think we'll wait another week or two before we get into like early Golden Globe nomination predictions. SAG award predictions will probably get to toward the end of the month. BAFTA would also, I think, be around the same time there. Obviously, PGA nomination, DGA, all that stuff will come on later on in the season, of course. But sticking with the Oscars and stuff, and again, just sticking in the top 8 categories, not a lot of changes to report on. I took out Just Mercy in Best Actor, as I said, and put in what's his name? De Niro for Irishman. I also took it out, Just Mercy in the screenplay category. And I put in Dark Waters, just based on the trailer and stuff. And it does, that movie, I've seen it, and I saw it a couple times at the screen, at a couple of screenings when I saw a few films there yesterday. And yeah, it does look like, and most of the Todd Haynes films that I've seen, I've liked. But this one looks like a good effort. I mean, the trailer was a little overblown. There were a couple moments where I'm like, oh, okay, no. But again, it's a trailer trying to sell the movie to the masses, not necessarily to me. But yeah, it looks like there's going to be some strong moments in this film. I mean, there's a possibility we could see Mark Ruffalo break into Best Actor later on in the season. Even though, I mean, the 5 we have right now that I have are Antonio Banderas, Leonardo DiCaprio, Adam Driver, Robert De Niro, and Joaquin Phoenix. Those 5 feel like very much those could be the 5 names that are read off in February or January, whenever the Oscars are this year. Very much so. I mean, I don't know who'd be the most. Maybe if Pain and Glory goes absolutely nowhere and there's just not as big a reaction to that film as we think, then maybe, we could see Mark Ruffalo or who else. Maybe if Just Mercy does a little better, maybe Michael B. Jordan or a couple others in there. Like I said, I have put Jennifer Lopez in for supporting actress. Took out Meryl Streep just for now, and of course, you never know. She could come back in at any point. Not a ton else right now. I feel like that's really about it. So, like I said, we'll get into some Globe predictions next time. Again, we're probably looking at a week or two before then. Because I do, and by the way, I do like to use, and I've mentioned a few times here, Gold Derby. I do like to use their site a lot to look at, to really kind of look at the nominations that I, am predicting for the moment. To see the ranking stuff, and also to see just relatively how some other people are talking about it and stuff. But I have, as soon as they opened up their Golden Globe stuff, I put stuff in. But it's like, man, I just looked at what they have right now for like what's in the drama category and then what's in the comedy musical category. That comedy musical category is going to be a total fluff piece compared to drama as far as the competition goes. I mean, really in that comedy category right now, it's like Jojo Rabbit, Bombshell. Anything else? It's like the rest of them are, I think, in a much lower tier for Best Picture nominees, like Cats I have in there, Booksmart, Dolomite is my name, Rocket Man, and a few others of those. The Farewell, actually, I could, maybe The Farewell, maybe I should put that one in. That's dangling around there, too. But again, it's like that one, again, from the surface, kind of looked more like a drama. And then stuff like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which right now is put in the drama category, it's like, man, there's enough comedic moments. You could argue that's a comedy. I mean, American Hustle got away with being a comedy a couple years ago, and that felt very much like a drama for most of it. The Martian, obviously, and even though there was controversy around it, was put in there. Get Out, I would argue, was a straight-up horror film, but it would, with some comedic undertones, but they put it in comedy. And so on and so forth. There's a lot of other examples of that. So since it is very early, and there's obviously sites like Gold Derby and a couple other prediction sites, they'll get more updated stuff as the publishers and the and other pundits and the reps and everybody from the studios and all that, and they come out and they say, well, okay, now it's like with or last year with Bohemian Rhapsody and Star Is Born going over to drama. And stuff like that. It's like, you don't want to get on the horse too early and then say, okay, actually everything I've said so far is wrong because this film is now over here, and this performance that was a lock over here is now over here where it's a little more risky now and stuff like that. So it's a little early, so I want to give a little bit more time before I give my predictions on that and everything. And then I think after, now I've seen Joker, I'm pretty much all caught up with everything. So I still haven't seen Farewell, but I think that'll be out on disc relatively soon. But as far as what else is coming out in August here, it's like October, I mean. Gemini Man, early reviews on that, not looking too strong, so I'm on the fence on that one. I might see it. Addams Family, I'm saying a strong hell no to. That Zombieland, the sequel might be fun. Maleficent, no. JoJo won't be in released to where I can see it probably until November. Same with The Lighthouse, which I'm also looking forward to. So I might not see anything for a little bit here, but still, overall, I think that's kind of where I stand right now on some of that stuff, and whenever the next video is, again, it'll probably be a couple weeks, but we'll catch up with you then, and again, maybe some of the hysterical stuff will calm down and all that, whatever. But we'll catch up with you guys next time.